There's no doubt about it, she is the hot new bike on the scene. Riders are flocking to this bike by droves, both from Harley-Davidson and from other brands. The bike I'm talking about is the new Indian Pursuit. And like I have with most other bikes, have considered it for my next touring motorcycle. So let's dive into the reasons why I should and should not consider a brand new Indian Pursuit for my next touring motorcycle. Let's go. Well, if y'all have checked out my other riding videos, you know that I have a great leather vest to put all of my patches on for all of my comings and goings, the places I've been, and I usually keep up with all of it by buying a patch wherever I go. If you're looking for leather like that, I would encourage you to go to Daniel Smart Manufacturing. Daniel Smart Manufacturing has a wide variety of leather vests, other leather products, other things to get you outfitted for the road. This flannel right here that's hanging across my chair that I've not had a chance to wear yet because it's been too dang hot pretty much, that's also a Daniel Smart product. So if you're looking for new kit to outfit yourself this fall for the fall riding season, check out Daniel Smart Manufacturing. Use promo code Burroughs at checkout to save. Also, there's a link in the description below. Check them out. You'll be glad you did. So I've made other videos about this subject, but Polaris in the last several years has bought Indian Motorcycle and has been producing motorcycles under the Indian banner, effectively bringing it back to life from the dead. The iconic motorcycle brand, America's first motorcycle brand, has a history that harkens all the way back to the very beginnings of the motorcycle industry. There are several points to consider why I would choose an Indian Pursuit for my next touring motorcycle. First and foremost is the brand new Power Plus engine that goes on these bikes. The Power Plus engine is a very highly engineered, highly designed, highly R&D'd, water-cooled V-twin engine, and this thing puts out some power. It has a smaller displacement than some of its air-cooled brethren. However, it puts out a good bit of power. And Indian believes so much in this engine that they put it up against the new Milwaukee 8 engine in the famed King of the Baggers racing competition over at Moto America. So it's got some oomph, it's got some go. Because of the way that this engine is engineered, it's more of a performance machine than it is a traditional V-twin touring engine. But just because it's made for action, I suppose, doesn't mean that it's going to be any less fun to ride out on the open road. It's got a very different performance curve. It's got a very different feel and I guess feedback, offers different feedback than the traditional Milwaukee 8, than the traditional Harley-Davidson heavy cam potato engines. And just because it's different doesn't mean it's automatically bad. It's just Indian's take on a V-twin engine. And with the new Indian motorcycles, it's more than just the engine. These bikes are coming out fully loaded. As opposed to Harley-Davidson's strategy on how to sell a motorcycle, Indian has taken the opposite tact. Instead of offering a base motorcycle to start from, Indian's pushing out the options in the finished product that comes from the factory. They're pushing a lot of factory features that come standard on these bikes instead of something that you have to accessorize out. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't accessories available for the Indian motorcycle, but for the bang for your buck, you're getting more features and more accessories on an Indian by design than you would from a Harley-Davidson straight from the factory. The biggest thing here is the electronically controlled suspension comes standard on these bikes. That's a big deal. When you look at the Harley-Davidson Road Glide, one of the first things that you want to do after you get a better sounding pipe on it, after you get your seat and all that, one of the big upgrades that people like to make is to the suspension on these bikes. With the Pursuit also, lower fairings come standard. You can get the Challenger that doesn't have all these accessories, but when you look at the fully loaded Pursuit, you get lower lights, you get lowers, you get the adjustable fairing. That doesn't come on a Harley-Davidson, by the way. All of these things are included in the final production of the bike that comes standard on the bike when you buy it off the showroom floor. Speaking of features that come off the showroom floor, the Smart Lean technology on these bikes, that's available. There's an awesome 7-inch touchscreen on these bikes that comes standard. So these bikes have a great many features that are available or come standard on right from the factory floor. Now that Indian is an option, Indian is actually attracting a lot of riders who otherwise have been turned off from Harley Davidson for a variety of different reasons. There are people who naysay Harley Davidson because of the crazy cost, the perception that you're getting less than what you pay for, the perception of unreliable motorcycles, the perception of the tough guy attitude. These are all reasons why people kind of shy away from Harley Davidson. But Indian has no problem taking these folks on, and there's quite a few people that have been coming from the metric community that I have seen on different forums and things like that. They're going to, instead of going to Harley Davidson for whatever reason, they're going to Indian and buying Indians and leaving the metric community, because many of the metric motorcycle manufacturers have pretty much abandoned the heavy touring segment in the V-twin arena. Essentially, Indian offers an opportunity to be part of the American V-twin world without all of the trappings of Harley Davidson. Indians are coming at this community and they're branding themselves very well, as opposed to Kawasaki, who has pretty much abandoned all of their branding and things of that nature under the Vulcan brand. Indian has been massively pumping dollars into branding, into getting apparel, accessories, the Indian, everything Indian. They're really doubling down on the Indian marketing, and it's catching on. There's people buying Indian t-shirts. They had a brand collab with Jack Daniels. They've got all sorts of stuff going on. They're definitely capitalizing on this underdog mentality. And there's a lot of people, they don't want to go with Harley Davidson because they're the dominant brand. They choose to root on for the underdog Indian. There's just people that are like that, and they're jumping onto the Indian bandwagon. What it boils down to is Indian has taken the American V-twin concept and they have redesigned it and built a better mousetrap, essentially. They've taken the look of the traditional American motorcycle and have modernized it through some of the lessons they learned through Victory, modernized it, put cool new features on it, everything that needs to be a traditional motorcycle, repackaged it in an awesome, brand new, technologically advanced, feature-rich, well-engineered product. And the great thing about Indian is, because Polaris has bought the Indian name, and because there's been over the last few years, been several different iterations of Indian, they're not beholden to any one particular design. They're not beholden to any one particular way of producing a motorcycle. Yes, there are design features like the elongated front fender and things of that nature that they've incorporated on some of the other models, but all in all, Indian has no loyalty to some of the other ways that have produced motorcycles in the past. They can take and design a brand new motorcycle, an amazing brand new motorcycle, try to make it the best they can. They have no trappings, that there are no boxes that they've kind of put themselves in because of tradition. And that's an advantage that Harley Davidson does not have in this particular arena. But for all the good of it, it's not all sunshine and rainbows over in Spirit Lake, Iowa. And I made a video about this a while back. There are a lot of people who are still angry about how Polaris did the Victory brand. There are a lot of people who are Victory fanboys and girls, and they really love those motorcycles. They like the edgy new styling, they liked the technology-rich features, they really liked everything there was to do about Victory motorcycles. They put their money where their mouth is. People bought 2 and 3 different Victory motorcycles because they just liked them. And because Victory offered a great alternative. Does this sound familiar? Victory offered a great alternative to Harley Davidson. So for all of the reasons why earlier I said people would want to get an Indian, or why I would consider an Indian for my next touring motorcycles, people were buying Victory for those particular reasons. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, Polaris pulls the plug on Victory in favor of Indian. There are a lot of people who are angry, and we heard about that in the comments on one of the last videos that I did. People are very angry about this. Even years after shuttering the Victory line, people are still holding a grudge against Polaris for this. And it's not just motorcycles. Polaris is a multifaceted company. They have different product lines, such as personal watercraft, or at least they had them. They were big into watercraft at one point in time. They're big into off-road. They're big into several different product lines. So for the parent company Polaris, if they decide something's not really working out, they've shown that they will pull the plug on it, no questions asked, no hesitation. And they did that to a historic boat company already. They've done that on their personal watercraft line. There's just, people are angry about that. And people in those particular communities are angry that Polaris has no qualms about pulling the plug. So there is a chance, although I think it is remote with everything going on, with all the success that Indian has seen, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But there is an outside chance out there that Polaris just wakes up one day, sees the sales figures are down from Indian, and decides, whoop, we're pulling the plug. Like I said, I don't really see it happening right now. Indian is doing very well in terms of sales. They're not competing with Victory anymore. At one point in time, Victory and Indian were competing with each other for R&D dollars, market share, things of that nature. Indian has taken off, and as far as Polaris is concerned, they're taking market share away from the other brands at a frightening pace. So there's no issue, even though the motorcycle market is soft right now, Indian is still capturing that market share from Harley-Davidson, and they're doing very well on their P&L sheet. But there's always that question that you will ask, always that thing that's nagging you in the back of your mind. Is this it? Say they have a couple bad years. Is Indian gone? These are questions that no one really has an answer to, because I don't have a crystal ball and I can't see the future. But that's one of the big reasons why I would be hesitant to get an Indian as my next touring motorcycle. Now, my current motorcycle, a Vulcan Voyager 1700, it has a water-cooled design just like the Indian, or well, maybe not just like, but very similar to the Indian. It's a liquid-cooled design. And I get it, right? These bikes can throw off some real heat. I know the air cool can for sure, but I've heard of Indian motorcycles getting hot spots. Now, absolutely for sure, my Vulcan Voyager has a hot spot right on the right side. I can point to you on my body where I feel it every time I ride that bike. It gets a hot spot. When I test rode the Indian Pursuit, I didn't get a hot spot, but I've heard of people saying that there's hot spots on these bikes, so that's something to be concerned about. But there, as far as the engine tone on these bikes, it's not like the visceral feel that you get with a Harley-Davidson. Yes, you'll get the vibration, you'll get the rumble. It has its own unique thing, but it's not like the Milwaukee 8 engine at all, in the sense that it's got that signature Harley-Davidson kind of shake and feel. But if that's not a big consideration for you, then you don't have to worry about that part. Now, there have been some complaints I've heard about some of the fit and finish on the Indian motorcycles. I've put my hands on several Indian bikes. I test rode one over at Road Atlanta. I have been into the showroom several times and put my hands on these bikes. I don't see a problem with the fit and finish on these bikes. However, Indian motorcycles, some of the first ones that were produced, some people have complained about the fit and finish on these bikes, some of the fairings feeling plasticky and cheap on them. Like I said, by the time I got my hands on a Pursuit, they don't feel that way at all. I think in the amount of time I've had to kind of put my hands on a Pursuit, it seemed like a pretty solid bike. But like I said, some of those older bikes, I know with the Thunderstroke in it, some of the older Springfields, some people have complained about them. I just don't see the issue on the new Pursuit. And for one of the other reasons why I would hesitate on getting a Pursuit is the smaller dealer network. Harley-Davidson, it seems like if you throw a rock, you will hit a Harley-Davidson dealership. In my area, there's no fewer than 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6 Harley-Davidson dealerships within a reasonable driving range. In my area, if you take a look at Indian, I've got like 2 that are within a reasonable driving range. Actually, that's not even true. There's one that's in Birmingham, and then you've got a couple out towards Macon, Georgia. But really and truly, there's not that many Indian dealerships in my immediate area. So the dealership coverage is a little bit spotty. I know with Harley-Davidson, if you're on a road trip, you can stop into any Harley dealership and get parts, service, whatever you need. Indian is aiming to be that way, but the dealerships, again, can be kind of few and far between. It kind of depends on where you are. And one of the other concerns about Indian dealerships is that Some of these dealerships are multi-brand. When Polaris first started pushing out Victory motorcycles and later Indian motorcycles, they depended heavily on their network of multi-brand dealerships, multi-line dealerships that were willing to take on their brand and push them out. Indian never developed its own dealership network other than relying upon these pre-existing multi-line dealerships, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way that they did it. That was available to them at the time. Now they have gone through and they have started creating their own line of independent like single line dealerships that carry the Polaris Slingshot as well as Indian motorcycles. I've seen them popping up. For example, Mall of Georgia is one. I know they're a single line dealership. There is a dealership up in Chattanooga, I think Crockett Power Sports. Goodness gracious, if I'm wrong, I'm so sorry. But there's a few dealerships out there, they're like Indian motorcycle. That's what they do. They don't carry any other lines. That's them. You're seeing them crop up more and more, but definitely, surely, Indian is behind the 8 ball on this because they've not had the time that Harley-Davidson has had to build their dealership network, to build out the brand loyalty, to do all this, that, and the other. They're behind the 8 ball. They're desperately trying to catch up, but they're just nowhere near where Harley-Davidson is as far as dealership distribution across the country. Anyhow, these are just my thoughts. Now, when I test rode an Indian motorcycle, I was very impressed with the handling on the bike. I was very impressed with the weight distribution on the bike. It seemed like the bike, these are big, heavy machines, but it seemed like this bike was very, very well balanced and had no qualms in riding it. I loved the power of the Power Plus. I really liked romping on it. The particular Pursuit that I had an aftermarket exhaust on it. I really liked romping on that aftermarket exhaust. It had a different exhaust note than the Harley-Davidson Road Glide for sure, absolutely, 100%, but I wasn't mad at it. Really liked the adjustable windshield. I could see myself using that. That's amazing. Now the stock windshield I'm not so much in love with, but the fact that you can make that adjust and move on a road trip is stellar. So yeah, I really liked the Pursuit and definitely am strongly considering it for my next touring motorcycle. But what do y'all think? Do any of you ride a Pursuit? Have you gone from Harley-Davidson to Pursuit? Have you gone from Pursuit to Harley-Davidson or any kind of Indian motorcycle back to Harley-Davidson? I want to know your thoughts. Please share them with me. All the feedback y'all are giving me, I'm taking it into consideration. I really would like some feedback to know which bike I should choose for my next touring motorcycle. Leave a comment below, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video.